Dream team, help me identify the respective schools present so we can duly acknowledge them. So please, I mean, it's obvious. This is St. Augustine's, right? Omnipotent Labor. Did I get it right? Or you are not even sure of yourself? You are? Okay. Ogwa Sektek, I'm told you are also here. Shall we please see you and appreciate you? Ogwa Sektek. Wave. Beautiful. Thank you for coming. Which other schools, please? I can see another. Oh. Adisadel College. Are you here? Oh, yes. The Zebra Boys. Welcome. Thank you so much for gracing the special occasion. Right. At this moment, I would love all of us to rise to our feet at this point and take the school anthem. We will be back shortly. So the school choir will lead us to take the anthem. Shortly after, we shall have Mr. Michael Edria present to us the welcome address of the headmaster of the school. Thank you. Indeed, the great vision of our forebearers has become a good one for us to also emulate. And that's exactly what we're doing here right now. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me also acknowledge the presence of wives, if I should put it, Wegehe, you are here. We appreciate you, Wegehe. Thank you. I should say, Gehe old student, right? You are here. Yes, we appreciate you. And I can see MOBA, all MOBA present. I salute. All MOBA present, I salute. Yes, and our invited guest. Ladies and gentlemen, at this moment, we are at MFANTSIPIM School, and the school ought to welcome us. To do this for us is the assistant headmaster in charge of administration, Mr. Michael Edia. He's stepping in a big stead of the headmaster, who is equally attending to some other important assignment. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Chris. Like he rightly said, the headmaster currently is in Tema. They are having the connectional conference. And as a head of the institution and the minister of God for the Methodist Church, currently he's in Accra or Tema. Good evening to all of you. Good evening to all of you. Very good. I don't want to jump the gun, so I'll just go straight to the point. Distinguished guests, respected panelists, educators, school leaders, students, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the headmaster, management, staff and students of this great school, it is my great pleasure to welcome you all to this important panel discussion on the theme, Integrating School Rules, Culture and Human Rights in Ghanaian Schools. Education is not only about academic achievement. Schools are also places where young people learn values, become responsible, disciplined, respectful, and how they can live in the society. For this reason, the rules and regulations that govern our schools are extremely important. At the same time, these rules must reflect our cultural values while responding to the fundamental rights and dignity of every child. In Ghana, our rich cultural heritage places great emphasis on respect for elders. Communal responsibility, discipline, hard work, and good character. These values have an important role to play in shaping responsible citizens. However, as our society continues to evolve, we must also ensure that traditional practices and school regulations are consistent with the rights and freedoms guaranteed to children under our Constitution and relevant child protection frameworks. The challenge before us, therefore, is not simply to choose between discipline and human rights or between culture and modern values. Rather, we must explore how these principles can complement one another. Effective school rules should promote order and accountability without humiliation, discrimination, and what have you. Today's discussion is particularly relevant because schools sometimes face difficult questions. How should discipline be administered? Which cultural practices should be encouraged or reconsidered? How can teachers maintain authority while respecting students' rights? How can students understand that having rights also comes with responsibilities? I believe that open dialogue among educators, policymakers, parents, traditional leaders, students, and other stakeholders can help us find practical answers to these questions. Our ultimate goal should be to create Ghanaian schools that are safe, disciplined, and inclusivity. As we begin this discussion, I encourage our panelists and participants to share their experiences, perspectives, and constructive recommendations. Let us move beyond theory and consider practical approaches that can be applied in our schools. Once again, on behalf of the headmaster, his management team, staff, and students, I warmly welcome you all and thank you for making time to participate in this important conservation. Old boys, we are grateful to you. MOBA Central, we are grateful to you. We hope and pray that at the end of the day, MFANTSIPIM will win, MOBA will win, Ghana will win. Thank you all, and may God bless us all. Thanks so much.
Thank you, and I guess the speech deserves a better applause than this. Yes, so we all are aware that MFANTSIPIM is 150 years. And as we celebrate this great milestone, the MOBA fraternity together with the MFANTSIPIM has christened a theme, which is a legacy of excellence, leadership, and service to inspire the future. Out of this, we have derived another important theme, which is integrating school rules, culture, and human rights in Ghanaian schools as our panel discussion event for today. We have great people who are here to share their experiences and knowledge in making sure that this important discourse is carried through for life, so that our younger generations and our policymakers would know and understand the right choices to make. Distinguished people, please help me once again put our hands together and welcome the chairman of the planning committee of the panel discussion, Professor John Abraham, to give us a welcome. By the way, he is MOBA 96. Please, boys, clap for him until he takes the microphone. Let me also announce that the program outline is on the scan code, which is placed at the various entrances and also at the back of the brochure. So if you have your phone here, you can scan and have a digital copy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Grace. Representative of Ebusiapin, representative of the Diocesan Bishop of the Methodist Church, Nana Brew Butler, Nananum who are here, MFANTSIPIM at 150 Planning Committee, SYG members, panelists, members of MOBA, President of MOBA Central and patrons, members of our sister school, Gehe, Central Regional Director of Education, his rep is here, headmaster and assistants, students, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. We have gathered here this evening to participate in the sesquicentennial celebration of MFANTSIPIM. As MFANTSIPIM celebrates 150 years under the theme, A Legacy of Excellence, Leadership and Service to Inspire the Future, the Central Regional Chapter of MFANTSIPIM Old Boys Association brings you this panel discussion under the auspices of the MFANTSIPIM at 150 Planning Committee. This program is at a historic moment that MFANTSIPIM is celebrating 150 years of academic excellence discipline, character formation. As the first secondary school in Ghana, MFANTSIPIM holds a unique and pioneering place in the history of Ghana's education. For a century and a half, this institution has stood as a living example of sound school rules, deep-rooted cultural values, and respect for individuals that can be woven together to produce men of character who have gone on to serve Ghana and the world with distinction. It is therefore fitting that as we mark this sesquicentennial, we pause to reflect on how we maintain discipline and order through school rules while honoring the cultural values that shape our identity as Ghanaians. Moreover, we must be conscious of safeguarding the fundamental human rights of every child. These three elements, rules, culture, and rights, are not always easy to reconcile. And yet, our collective task, both as a nation and as custodians of children's future, is to find the delicate balance. The Panel Discussion Planning Committee has therefore assembled its distinguished resource persons, educators, to discuss the topic integrating school rules, culture, and human rights in Ghanaian schools. It is envisaged that stakeholders, that is government, school administrators, teachers, parents, students, and the larger society will all unite and share in the desire to shape the kind of school environment our children deserve. The planning committee anticipates that everyone present will keep an open mind to listen actively and to engage constructively, bearing in mind that the ultimate goal of this discussion is to contribute meaningful ideas towards building school environments that are safe, disciplined, culturally grounded, and right-respecting for every Ghanaian. Environment worthy of the pioneering legacy that MFANTSIPIM has upheld for 150 years. Please, sit back and enjoy the proceedings. Thank you.
And indeed, we are enjoying the proceedings, aren't we? Yes. Oh, let me welcome our brother back. Mr. Arthur, thank you for coming back. Until recently, he was the Assistant Headmaster Administration. Thank you for coming back. Right. At this moment, ladies and gentlemen, we take remarks by the MFANTSIPIM at 150 Anniversary Planning Committee, and we have our senior, Mr. Kojo Morgan, MOBA 77, to give us a remark. Please, a round of applause for this great gentleman as he gives us a word from the APC.
Good evening. All protocols observed. I am delighted to be here to deliver these opening remarks at the third MFANTSIPIM Sesquicentennial Lectures, speaking on behalf of the MFANTSIPIM 150th Anniversary Planning Committee. These lectures, as we have all known, is an important intellectual component of the celebrations. It provides a platform for reflection and engagement on issues relevant to MFANTSIPIM, education, and the Ghanaian society. The lectures therefore seek not only to celebrate our history, but also to contribute meaningful to the national discourse. This evening, our focus is on a very interesting but important theme: integrating school rules, culture, and human rights in Ghanaian schools. The theme invites us to examine the role of school rules and institutional culture alongside the growing importance of human rights in education. At its heart is the responsibility of schools to create environments where young people acquire knowledge and skills while developing discipline, character, responsibility, and respect for the rights of others. This discussion is particularly relevant to MFANTSIPIM as we celebrate 150 years of education in Ghana, secondary education in Ghana, leadership and service. The school has a long tradition of developing young people not only academically, but also in character and their capacity to serve society. As we celebrate this legacy, we must also consider how our values and traditions can continue to guide future generations within an evolving educational and social environment. The discussion requires us to consider how discipline can coexist with dignity, how traditions can be preserved while responding to contemporary realities, and how authority can be exercised responsibly while respecting students' rights. We are privileged to have a distinguished panel whose diverse backgrounds will enrich this conversation. And we all look forward to the perspectives of Nana Kobna Nketia, Reverend Esther Dennis, Professor Alfred Ampamensa, and Dr. Charles Amu. I express our sincere appreciation to Nana Brew Butler for accepting to preside over this session, and to Dr. Akins for undertaking the important responsibility of moderating the discussion. I want to commend MOBA Central for organizing this very, very important event, and also to our partners, KGL Group, Margins Group, the Multimedia Group, and all our supporters. As we begin, I encourage us to look beyond the tensions between rules, culture, and rights, and explore how these three dimensions can be integrated to create school environments that are disciplined, respectful, inclusive, and conducive to learning and character formation. As MFANTSIPIM marks its 150th anniversary, conversations such as this provide an opportunity to celebrate our past while thoughtfully considering the future. I wish us all a stimulating, candid, and thought-provoking discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senior Kojo Morgan. Right, so we are on. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, shall we please give an applause to Nana Kobna Nketia. Another astute son of this great hill. Please, a better applause. Right. We shall now take the introduction of the chairperson for this momentous event that's about to, or that has already commenced. And the person to help us is the secretary to the planning committee of this panel discussion, Dr. Pius Ginele. Indeed, he is also MOBA 96.
Good evening once again. Okay. So the name is Jinyala, so I just have to correct it. The Regional Director of Education, the Headmaster of MFANTSIPIM School, the traditional leaders, distinguished panelists, resource persons, members of the 150th Anniversary Planning Committee, distinguished old boys, teachers, and dear students, all other protocol observed. It is my great honor to introduce the distinguished gentleman who will chair this occasion. He is a proud old boy of Kwabutre, having attended MFANTSIPIM School from 1964 to 1970, and remains deeply committed to the school and its legacy. He chaired the MOBA fundraising committee for the 125th anniversary and has continued to support the school and educational initiatives in the Central region. He is a businessman, an entrepreneur, and an energy sector pioneer. As a founder and board chairman of Sen Power Generations Limited, he played a leading role in the development of the Kpong Independent Power Project, an important contribution to Ghana's power generation capacity. He is also the founder and CEO of Realtap Investment, established in 1986, and he has served as a shareholder and the resident director of Arab Contractors Ghana. In football administration, he served as the chairman of the Ghana Football Association from 1992 to 1996, during which he helped implement the historic Winneba Declaration, laying important foundations for the commemoration and professionalization of Ghanaian club football. His tenure also witnessed Ghana's triumph at the 1995 FIFA Under-17 World Cup Championship in Ecuador. He has also been long-standing supporter and executive figure of the mysterious Ebusua Dwarf FC. His contribution to higher education is equally distinguished. He served as the chairman of the Governing Council and the pro-chancellor of the University of Cape Coast, while continuing to support the academic development through initiatives such as UCC Graduate Research Fund. Academically, he holds qualification in business studies from the University of London, North London Management Science from the University, and then the University of Kent at Canterbury in the United Kingdom. Ladies and gentlemen, when you bring together enterprise, energy, football, education, leadership, and service to the country, you arrive at the remarkable Ghanaian. And now, it is my privilege to reveal the man behind this remarkable record. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, with a standing ovation, we welcome our chairman, Mr. Samuel Nana Brew Butler, affectionately called Sambat. A bigger clap for him, a bigger clap for him. Such credentials are not easy to come by, so a bigger clap, a bigger clap. Thank you, Chairman.
You may please take your seats, please. Thank you very much for all the falsehoods. I stand on the protocols already established. But let me say that I address you all as distinguished ladies and gentlemen. First of all, let me accept this honor, calling upon me to chair this event. Distinguished guests, members of the MFANTSIPIM family, our esteemed panelists, it is, as I said, a great honor and privilege to chair this important panel discussion not merely schools, and at the same time, protect and respect the fundamental rights and dignity of every student, and indeed, even the teachers as well. That is the question before us, and I want to make one point clear. Easy answers, which I know the moderator would do adequately. I intend, therefore, to remain very neutral during this discussion, because I believe this is precisely the kind of question on which reasonable people can disagree. And MFANTSIPIM should be a place where such disagreement can be expressed intelligently, respectfully, and without fear. My Fisher folks will say that, "Matasi, nesuma madrin de menta salada." Yena nanum butaipa. But equally, but he defied it. He went to court in his traditional way. Was that simply an act of defiance? Was it a breach of convention? Or was it an assertion of dignity and cultural identity? So, at what point does legitimate dissent become indiscipline? Authority. I'm not answering that question. I'm asking it. I'm not answering that question. I'm asking it. So let's look at Kwabote or Kwabwini, who said to have given us this skill. Jacob was insane, a different kind of non-conformity. Kwabwini here was a remarkable man, not an old boy, who did not have the benefit of formal schooling, yet became a prominent figure through enterprise, intelligence, and determination. Unlike Sechi, who went to school and had formal education, Jacob was insane, dressed immaculately in European clothing. Yet, he remained deeply rooted in his Fanti identity, was known for intertwining Fanti and English in his speeches. For instance, when he was to say this in English, the high tides of the sea have nothing to do with a claveret. He put it this way: the epoprams of the sea has nothing to do with Akisau Padisi. He mixes his English and Fanti. Because of time, I will not walk you through what is said in UK, for which reason he had today the Victoria Park. That's another day. Now, let's talk about the great Mr. Saba himself. Can education preserve culture? Lawyer and nationalist and scholar of Fanti customary institutions. He used his Western education not to discard indigenous knowledge, but to study and record and strengthen understanding of the Fanti customary law. That raises another question. Can education be a means of preserving culture rather than replacing it? And here, I have a personal connection to this history. My great-grandfather, Samuel Manuel K., a prince of the Royal House of Denchira, and one of the foundation members, students of the school, was a good friend of John Mensah Saba. He is described in the historical material as having assisted Saba by proofreading and correcting quotations in his book. For me, this is a reminder that the questions we are discussing are not abstract questions. They belong to the intellectual and cultural history of the very institution in which we are gathered. MFANTSIPIM fundamental rule. And then we come to perhaps the most provocative MFANTSIPIM principle of all. A breach of common sense is what? Thank you very much. That simple sentence contains an enormous challenge. If common sense is part of discipline, then discipline cannot be entirely mechanical. It requires judgment. It requires proportion. It requires context. It forces us to ask whether every breach of a rule is equally serious, and whether every act of nonconformity should be treated as indiscipline. When does discipline become humiliation? When does tradition become rigidity? When does a student's assertion of a right become an excuse for indiscipline? And when does institution invoke discipline when what is really required is unquestioning conformity? I remember, and I see that this other voice here, that when we were in school, one of our seniors, I'm sure Nana will remember, at the school conference, I don't know whether you still have it, he got up to ask a question. It was J.W. Abruka who was the headmaster. He said, "Mr. Headmaster, how come a man of God, Reverend Brantford, was to be decorated with the Young Pioneer scarf? He rejected it on grounds of a contradiction between his Christian beliefs and of course the propaganda by the young pioneers. But he was sacked. He stood his firm in the grounds, but he was sacked. Also, discipline, culture, responsibility, and human rights can be made to reinforce rather than undermine one another. That is the convention I hope we'll have today. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I will therefore now seize the opportunity to introduce the moderator for the day. Dr. Kenneth Shelton Akins is a retired senior research fellow from the Department of Peace Studies, School of Development Studies, University of Cape Coast. He holds a PhD and a master's in political science, both from the University of Kansas, USA, a Fulbright scholar, in addition to an MPhil in Development Studies, University of Cape Coast, a graduate certificate in African Studies, a certificate in Peace Education, as well as a board member of the Governing Council of Nyansapor College, Accra. He has done advocacy, moderation for National Commission for Civic Education on various issues of interest as a resource person since 2016. He is also the Ghana Tertiary Education Commission assessor. Though on retirement, he still serves as a member of the UCC Policy Committee. His publication in books, journals, book chapters, and research technical reports revolve around his diverse expertise. And to crown it all, he is a proud old boy of MFANTSIPIM School. And he comes from a house that I envy so much, because it's the only house in this school that has an anthem, Locus Wiser. Mr. Moderator, I'm sure, and I know, you will steer this, and I wish you the best. Thank you very much.
A thunderous applause for our chairman, Nana Sambro Butler. Sir, thank you so much. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, at this moment, may we also acknowledge the presence of our Metropolitan Chief Executive, Honorable George Justice Arthur. Sir, thank you for your presence. Indeed, I acknowledge your entire team as well. Okay. I guess the stage is almost set, but just before we do that, the school choir and the regimental band would help us do the 150th anniversary anthem. Shall we all rise at this moment as we take it? Thank you very much. May we please resume our seat. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, under the auspices of the MFANTSIPIM at 150 Planning Committee, the MOBA Central was commissioned to put together a panel discussion, which by the grace of God and by dint of hard work, we are all witnessing right now. It is under the theme, Integrating School Rules, Culture, and Human Rights in Ghanaian Schools. And at this moment, our moderator has been unveiled to us. Please, let's give the proudhood to us. Please, let's give the proud local shore boy a very warm applause as he comes to and also give us a gist of what they bring to all of us. Please, a better applause. By the way, he is the president of MOBA Central. Mr. President, would you be kind enough to give us the local show anthem?
Thank you, Chris. Good evening, everybody. Let me also stand on all the existing protocols, but to singularly say that I'm honored to be introduced by the chairman. As he was introducing me, goose bombs and goose pimple. First, we will look at harmonizing cultural values with universal human rights. This requires balancing global standards of human dignity with local traditions. While individual freedoms, cultural values provide community identity. Respecting both ensures justice, prevents abuse, and promotes inclusive social growth. To help us have insight into this sub-theme is Nana Kobna Nketia the Fifth. Nana is the paramount chief of Esikado, MOBA 69, a distinguished historian scholar, and an advocate of African culture and governance. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Nana Kobna Nketia the Fifth. Thank you, Nana. Next on our theme, the sub-theme is protecting the founding ethos of mission schools. This sub-theme requires balancing the historical religious identity with the constitutional rights of a diverse student population. In many countries, particularly across sub-Saharan Africa like Ghana, mission schools are funded by the state, but retain deep institutional ties to their founding churches such as Catholic, Methodist, and Presbyterian. As a result, protecting their core character, built on specific moral, spiritual, and disciplinary frameworks, has become a central point of legal, cultural, and political debate. Reverend Esther H.B. Dennis, a retired educationist, an itinerant minister of the gospel, a counselor, and an achiever, is our resource person to help us navigate this contentious debate. Ladies and gentlemen, Reverend Esther Dennis. Help me to welcome her. The call to integrate school rules, cultural values, and human rights in Ghanaian education should not be seen merely as lip service, but a critical social transformation process, which requires that stakeholders are engaged and accountability is enforced. This is the third sub-theme for discussion: stakeholder engagement and accountability in policy reform. The sub-theme looks at how affected groups, such as citizens, businesses, and civil society, are consulted in decision-making to make policies fair, transparent, and practical. This approach ensures public ownership, reduces resistance, and holds leaders responsible for successful policy results. To provide insight into this sub-theme is Professor Alfred Ampamensah, MOBA 1992. Professor Alfred Ampamensah is the Deputy Director General for Academic Programs and Professional Development at the Institute for Education Planning and Administration, IEPA, a UNESCO Category 2 Center of Excellence at the University of Cape Coast, Ghana. He's passionate about and committed to strengthening educational planning, educational leadership, and system-level planning across Ghana and Africa. Our last sub-theme will deal with the right to identity, religion, language, dress, and belonging. The right to identity protects persons' freedom to practice their religion, speak their language, wear their traditional dress, and belong to their cultural community. This human right lets people stay true to their roots and share their unique heritage without fear or unfair treatment. The expert to lead this discussion is no other than Dr. Charles Amoh, who is a peace-building, human rights, and conflict resolution practitioner, and currently serves as the Regional Executive Secretary of the Central Regional Peace Council in Cape Coast. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Amoh. And so we are set to begin our panel discussion. Panelists, you are welcome. The format of the discussion is that there's going to be 6 rounds of questions. The first round, each panelist will speak for 5 minutes. The second round and the third round, each panelist will speak for 3 minutes. And then I will come to the audience, and the audience will have the opportunity to have 4 questions asked. After that, it will be my turn to ask a question that any 2 panelists will answer also for 3 minutes. Then we come to a concluding round where each panelist will now speak for 2 minutes and come out with their recommendations. Ladies and gentlemen, we begin the panel discussion. And my first question goes to Nana. Traditional Ghanaian values include respect for elders and authority, hospitality, religiousness, social harmony, and communalism. Children's fundamental rights are specialized human rights designed to protect and support anyone, especially under the age of 18. These rights are legally codified in the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, which is the most widely ratified human rights treaty in history. These rights include survival rights, development rights, protection rights, and participation rights. So, Nana, this is your question. And at 1 minute to your time, there will be a flashcard to prompt you that you are about to end. Your question is this: how can traditional Ghanaian values be integrated into modern educational framework without violating students' fundamental rights to dignity and participation?
The chair, my senior butler, the moderator, panelists, and distinguished everybody here. You've raised up various questions, and I was sitting here smiling. There are words: whoever defines the world controls the world. Whoever. Have we, as a people, defined the word modern? Modern might be westernization. Who says I want to be westernized? So these are the things. 2, he talked about United Nations. When we were forming the United Nations, was Ghana there? Was Africa part of it? In 1874-75, Europe decided to go to war on Africa, chopped us into pieces, and up to now we're trying to get out of it. And part of it was the establishment of this great school by Sabas. You see, if you don't look at this school at the particular setting that it was born, you lose direction. That was the period of cultural nationalism. You had Saba. They had formed the Infancy Amambohu Feku. They wanted to learn about themselves, not learn about French Revolution. You know? Saba wrote, as Senior Butler was saying, Saba wrote the Fanti Customary Law, and you could see that if you read Saba's works, you come to see how embedded he was about the worry over culture, that we are losing it. We are being wiped out to become Abrofumba, or as they say in Fanti, Abroba. And they say that's a gentleman. So you had Saba's friend who was, well, his student, Kesley Hifford, who in 1913 formed the Gold Coast National Research Institute in Sekondi. And he said that the motto of that institute was remove the white man's standpoint from the black man's point of view. Today we refer to that as African-centeredness or Afrocentricism. They were worried about it. And of course, you had Sechi, who crowned it all with his activities. The book, I'm sure most of you have studied, the play he wrote, where he was ridiculing those of us who wanted to be white. You know, I remember myself when I used to go to church as a little boy, I had to wear a suit. It was at MFANTSIPIM that I started learning how to wear a cloth. So I'm very worried about looking at things from the word universal. And so when you say human rights, if you go into our culture, what we impa what we into ebusiam? The ebusia pre-exists the individual. So sociology, which we haven't started here, is to take it from the communal side to the individual, not vice versa. Everything. Culture is about discipline. I don't want to define culture, to take a whole book, but to tell you about that word and its importance. During the Second World War, when the Germans took over France, one of the German officers went into a theater, and the French were discussing culture. So the guy brought out a gun and told them to get out. You see, he knew that culture is the only weapon you have to resist everything. Once you are embedded and you are strong in your culture, nobody can defeat you. It is your epidermis. As soon as you let go a part of it, then you've opened a wound for someone else to enter, some germs to enter and cause diseases. So culture is not, sometimes I look at young children in the school, we are dancing culture. How can you dance culture when it's about the structure of your mind? So unless you understand culture, and therefore as Nana Butler was, my senior Butler was talking, and talked about, Yenananum, one butai, pa. See, the word bo is a very interesting word. Infante. Wubui. It's like saying bo som bo. Intumon som bo som. I'm only trying to throw things out for your mind to say, and these are things that somebody like Kobna Sechi brought out in 1935 in this very room. I don't know if the assembly hall was built, but I'm sure it was built. When he made a statement and asked the students to go and answer that, what's he chunsa, and he asked the students to translate it into English. Most of the old boys who were in the school, who were in the school at that time, keep talking about it, that how do you translate that into English? So even the indigenous language, that, Nana, you remember that they said no vernacular here. We've been through all this system, mainly because there was a period of time we did not understand who we are, what is our identity. We're gradually learning, relearning. It's a subject that you can talk for hours on various strands of it. What I'm very proud to sit here and say is that even Ghana's independence, much as we praise Osajifo, it was culture that was used as the tool. And one of the leaders of that role happened to be my late predecessor, who went in and then later saw to the establishment of African studies and the erection of a statue to Mensa Saba in Legon. Ask the people today what they know. They don't even know anything about Saba. So that's the challenge. Nobody conquers you to give you laws to free you. So if the conqueror gave you laws and oppressed you, why are you still obeying the conqueror's laws? And they knew what they were doing. So the first law they promulgated was the marriage ordinance, because marriage is the central thing to society. So put something on it and you destabilize. Up to now, we don't know. In fact, the fancies are very funny. When you go and marry a woman, they call it engagement. And then when you go to church, a cause celebration or what's a wedding or marriage. That's how stupid some of us have become. So culture is the most powerful tool you'll find in every institution. America is fighting over culture. When they were going to, I'll give you 2 seconds. I have 2 seconds. When George Bush and Tony Blair were going to fight Iraq, Tony Blair stood up in Parliament and said, we are going to defend our culture. But now Britain, he's going to Iraq to go and defend British culture. What do you think culture is all about? So without understanding...
In order to produce academically successful students, they also sought to form persons of character, faith, service, discipline, and leadership. Reverend Dennis, your question. Explain the concept of mission schools and what are the founding ethos of mission schools as well as the pillars that are embodied in this vision.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, distinguished guests. For us to understand this question, the concept of the mission school, we have to look at 3 things. We have to look at what is mission school? Why were mission schools established? And so the why answers the purpose. So the third is, what were they established to do? So for us to be able to look at mission schools, for me, I see mission schools as products brought down by the missionaries. The missionaries came down with their products, and they came to establish schools. They had a goal. They wanted to educate individuals, and not only to educate them, but also they wanted education and character to be balanced. You educate an individual without a character, it's a big problem. So for us to get the balance, they intended to give the education and at the same time build character. So mission schools, we will say they are faith-based educational institutional products. If we come from that angle, every product is produced for a purpose, to serve a purpose. So if I'm holding this, if I manufacture this as a product, I don't only manufacture it without giving a specific instruction as how to go about using this file. That is where the ethos of the founding fathers come. They came with a product that they want to establish schools. But there's no way you can go through the school without knowing let's say the manual. So for them, their manual was their ethos, built in pillars. And they have about 5 pillars that they make sure that each student who went through mission school went through it. So for them, education wasn't the only goal that they came. For them to build character, they made sure that these 5 pillars also was able to stand. So pillar 1, they made sure that as you go through school, academically, you are supposed to excel. So one of their pillars was that they built the mind. You must be able to use your mind and use it well. And they didn't only build the mind, they were able, so for education and character, they were trying to build the mind, they were trying to build the heart, and they were trying to build the hands. So you use your mind, you use your heart, and you make sure that your hand is also used. they didn't only look at academics, they also looked at discipline, character, moral character. So as I had already said, their reason for establishing mission school was to train or educate people with moral character. Moral character in the sense that the same people they are training are the people who are going to be leaders. So their character should be very, very good. You can't just give them education. You bring a leader whose character is not good, it will create a problem. They didn't only look at that. They look at the area of discipline, which is very important in education. You cannot take discipline out of education. So the mission schools or the missionaries came here to establish mission schools, and with the essence of educating individuals, building their character, and the character they were building, or the education and the character, were based on these pillars. So there is no way you can go through mission school. There's no, the ethos or the pillars were their identity. So if you can't go through mission school without being built on those pillars. If you go through mission schools without pillars, it's like a building without a foundation and a building without an identity.
Whoa. Hey. So here we have culture. Within culture, mission schools are established with their pillars: discipline, academic excellence, social transformation. So how do you integrate school rules, cultural values, and human rights? And we already heard it said that it's a critical transformational process that will succeed or fail depending on how deeply stakeholders are engaged and how robustly accountability is enforced. It argues that without genuinely inclusive participation, reforms will be seen as external impositions. And without clear accountability structures, even the best intentioned policies remain paper promises. Professor, what are some of the key policy reforms that Ghana has adopted? And how do they tie in with international conventions on human rights, cultural relevance, and legal soundness?
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. And then good evening, cherished listeners, and then panelists as well. When you asked the question related to international conventions, I got confused because Nana has already deflated the issues related to subscribing to international conventions. Notwithstanding, I would try to address some of the issues that you have raised. First of all, I would say that we are trying to mold people who would uphold our cultural identity. Not only that, but also we are trying to mold global citizens. In that regard, our education is not only molding people for our Ghanaian culture, but molding people for the world. So I would attempt to then link what we are saying to some of the international conventions that really underpin the discussions that we are having. So, we are talking about school rules. If children are in school, why are they even in school in the first place? I think that the first thing is for them to learn. It's for us to enhance learning, not only academic learning, moral upbringing, and then the kinds of values that are necessary for their future. So whatever school rules that we may have, and then whatever kind of international conventions that are there, should be there to promote the right of the child to learn. In that regard, there are a few international conventions that I can mention, and one is the right of the child, the Convention of the Right of the Child. Every child has a right. Every adult has a right. But to what extent do we uphold the right of the child? Especially to nurture the child to develop and grow as is expected, so that when they grow, they can then take over from the adults. There are both international and then regional conventions. One other convention, international convention that I want to mention is the African Charter on the Rights of the Child. There is another UN Charter that speaks about culture as well. But then because we are talking about education, I would want to then come down also to the right of children with disabilities. A lot of the times, if you are not careful, we may leave them out. But these are also part of our society, so it is important that we look at them. Then we can also look at international conventions on education. Currently, we all subscribe to the Sustainable Development Goals. And for education, Sustainable Development Goal 4, which talks about equitable and inclusive education, quality education for all. So it is important that we look at these things. Beyond these global conventions, we have the Continental Education Strategy for Africa, which is a regional strategy. So once we are talking about education, we have to look at all these things within this context. Now, to come home to Ghana, what are some of the policy reforms? Let me use policy broadly. So I would start with even our 1992 Constitution. Our Constitution, as a country, gives the child the right to education, and then the right to every other service that the country can provide. And because of this Constitution, we have, relative to education, the free compulsory universal basic education policy, which seeks to provide free compulsory basic education for all. So with that, though we haven't been able to really enforce the compulsory component of it, at least we know that public basic schools are supposed to be free. And quite recently, we have the free senior high school policy as well. We have the inclusive education policy, and I'm happy that our moderator, you were part of those who drafted the policy. So that inclusive education policy more or less also captures most of the issues that have to do with the child. The current education reforms also have some curricular development reforms that have gone on, and these have also sought to integrate issues related to building cultural identity and then global citizenship as what they call cross-cutting issues. So irrespective of what you teach, whether maths, English, physics, you have to try to integrate some of these things in terms of the examples, in terms of the kinds of questions that you ask, so that at the end of the day, our children will not be alienated. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. I would have loved to take a follow-up question to that, but I don't have to forget my doctor here. Having talked about the Constitution, we know that the right to identity, your topic is on identity, is recognized and protected under several international, regional, and national, some of which have been mentioned by the professor. However, every child enters school with an identity shaped by family, culture, language, religion, ethnicity, gender, and personal experiences. The 1992 Constitution of Ghana guarantees freedom of religion, Article 21. It prohibits discrimination on religious grounds, Article 17, and protects every child's right to education, as the Prof has mentioned, Article 25. When you go to Ghana's 2021 population and housing census, we also have about 71% of the population being Christians, 20% Muslim, and 3% adherents of traditional African religions. So, Doc, your question is, what are some of the challenges of religious diversity in Ghanaian schools that may compromise religious tolerance?
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Let me start from where you ended. Article 21 is true. Grants freedom of religion to all Ghanaians. Article 17 of the 1992 Constitution also prohibits discrimination against any Ghanaian based on religion. As you cannot discriminate against anyone using religion. And Article 25, he mentioned, also protect the right of the child to education. This means that every child enters into any school in Ghana having his rights to education and his rights to religion fully protected by the 1992 Constitution. And he rightly said, Ghana is not having only one religion. If you look at the latest population census, the 2021 population census, some are Christians, some are Muslims, some are practitioners of traditional religion, and even some don't have any religious affiliation. Therefore, the tendency that any school in Ghana will have sections of all these religious divisions in the particular school is very high. You may enter into any school in Ghana and you may get people who are Christians, people who are Muslims, people who are traditional practitioners, and some who even don't have any religious affiliation. This diversity is very great. It helps every school because it enriches the environment of the school. But if it is not carefully handled, some problems or some challenges can compromise it and make it a very bad thing. And I want to mention some of these challenges that confronts educational rights diversities in schools. The first one that I want to mention is misinterpretation of the concept of religious freedom. Many parents, many students don't understand that concept. Some think that so far as the Constitution has provided right to education to every Ghanaian, then I can enter into any school and maybe plant my church or build a church in the school. That's what maybe they think. They don't know that where your right ends is where another person's rights will begin. So you have your right to practice your religion. It is true. Nobody will take it away from you. But there is a responsibility on you to respect the right of others, even the school that you have attended. But some go to the school and fight because they think their daughters or their sons are being discriminated against in that particular school. That is the first challenge that you have to tackle in case we want religious diversity to thrive in all schools. Misinterpretation of that concept of freedom of worship or freedom of religion. The second one I can mention is biasness of teachers and its educational leaders. Some schools, some positions are reserved for certain group of religion. If you are not a Muslim, if you are not a Christian, you cannot be a school prefect. If you are not from this particular sect, you cannot participate in the science and math quiz. This becomes a challenge to religious diversity in schools. You will not be surprised to see a teacher at a basic school trying as much as possible to indoctrinate or evangelize when he's in the classroom teaching. especially those who teach religious and moral education. They are in the school trying to indoctrinate. And this is a challenge. And as my time is almost over, the last one I would like to mention is calendar biasness of some schools. You can see that the school's calendar has been tilted towards one religion. During vacations, that religion has freedom to celebrate certain festivals. But other religions, when they are in school, that's where their festivals are celebrated. When it happens like this, it becomes a challenge to religious diversity in schools. Let us not forget, the 1992 Constitution of Ghana is the supreme law of the country. Every school rule is under it. Thank you very much.
Do you want some more? I'm even afraid to ask Nana this question, since he has already debunked. But at the same time, I'll go ahead. We all know that traditional norms are the long-standing, unwritten rules, the customs and behavioral expectations that a society passes down through generations. So they are institutionalized. They act as a social blueprint, guiding how individuals interact, they make decisions and fulfill their roles. So we can talk about some traditional norms like taboos and communal accountability. I want to zero down on communal accountability, which is a shared duty of individuals within a group to support each other, correct harmful behavior, and maintain collective well-being without relying solely on outside authorities. I mean, we all know that if you go to a washroom and you are of the male gender, you don't enter the female gender. These are norms, okay? However, in schools, it looks as if there is a shift of the responsibility for student success and well-being from a top-down administrative burden to a shared collective duty owned by teachers, students, parents, and community members alike. So, Nana, your question. There's a presumption that traditional norms can prevent school indiscipline and vandalism. Respectfully, can you cite 2 examples of such norms and how they can operate without compromising, and I'm afraid to say it, but I have to say it, modern child protection laws?
How many minutes do I have?
You have 3 minutes.
3.
3 minutes.
Okay. Now, let us all repeat after me. Just 1 minute. All education. All education is indoctrination. All education is indoctrination. The best education is the indoctrination that makes you aware of indoctrination. No. Seriously. Everybody who is passed through my hands when I was a teacher learns this offhand. So don't think that education is. And when you talk about Kweku Anansi, that's why I'm coming back to you. You are talking about critical thinking. Anansi questions everything. Kweku is on Suro. You don't even know the meaning of the name Kweku. Then you go to Kweku Anan. Kweku Anansi. Kweku is 4. Anan is 4. Eternity speaks. I don't want to go too much into that, the shape of Anansi and all that. But it's to provoke your thoughts that traditions are the very best of values that power a society from age to age. Once you lose your traditions, you are gone. And the worst thing is to go and pick up your oppressor's traditions. You go into what is referred to as self-hate. So let us be careful about these things. How many Ghanaians have even seen the Constitution before that we are making a fetish about it? How many Ghanaians can read and write English as well as you people do? How many? So it is the culture that cultures a certain form of behavior. And in our culture, education, the word for it, you may disagree with me, is intete. What the tete nzama ashewuma. No, what tete? If you're intete in you, that means that they don't have any elders paying in you, they don't have any ancestors, and so on and so forth. And MFANTSIPIM does have intete. When we talk about the Sabbath and so on, what do you think that we are referring to? We are referring to ancient thought that came. Now, all this thing about religious tolerance and so on, if you were to sink into Africa, you'd be very surprised. I mean, we make so much noise about the word Ubuntu. I am you and you are me. We forget that Ubuntu comes all the way embedded in our culture, in our understanding, in our social philosophy. And Ubuntu, specifically among the Fati, just means Sama. Sama is not compassion. I'm alive for you. Would I go and do the kind of things I do if I know that they are not good? The whole idea, and I told you earlier, our society is about responsibilities. Rights come from feudal societies. We were never feudal. But unfortunately, that is where we've gone into. And look at sometimes some of the arguments that people make. Oh, he's a king, he's a chief. How do you say king in Fante or him? How do you say chief in Fante or him? So it's difficult to be a critical thinker. And that is what education is supposed to teach you. To think, whatever comes, you come across, think about it. What extent does it benefit? Not you, but you as a society. Let me tell you before my 30 seconds go. My late uncle passed away 95. The Ghanaian High Commissioner, one of them, Kwesi Ama, came to see me. And he said something very interesting to me. He says, oh, you don't know Nana? Then I smiled. I knew my uncle. Then he says, when he went to England to read law, and I just went back and said, law student, Ghana were lawyers. It took me 20 years to understand that statement. Who are you educating yourself for? Why are you being educated? Why is society's responsibility not right? Why is society educating you? If you're a doctor, is it for yourself? No, you are educating yourself to enhance the community. This whole thing means a mental change, a mental revolution, to be African, to go back into your culture. And some of these questions don't have to arise because I am, because of my people.
This has been one of partnership rather than replacement. So, Reverend, it's a long question, but I want you to give us 2 examples of these reforms that underlie the partnership, and how these educational reforms were intended to strengthen educational provision, but not to eliminate the religious and moral foundations upon which mission schools were established.
Thank you. So the government came in to partner with missionaries, and one of the reforms, the Education Act of 1961, Act 87, under our first president, Nkrumah, made basic education free and compulsory. The government also came in to take over the payment of teachers. The missionaries were paying the teachers, but the government came in to partner by paying the teachers. And also the government came in to make sure that textbooks and grants were given. But the government did not eliminate their founding ethos, their values, their discipline, their religion. So the same act, the same educational act at section 22 said every assisted school shall retain its religious character. So though the government has come in to partner by paying teachers, by giving textbook, the government made sure that their religious character, whatever they came to do, was maintained. So it means came to partner, but did not come and replace or take their values away. The other thing the government, the other educational reform that we can look at is the Educational Reform Act of 1987. Under our former President Rawlings, what he came to do is that he changed the system from 17 years to 12 years, where we now have 633. It used to be 17, but he came in to reduce it. By doing that, he didn't take their values away. They still maintain their education values, the discipline and other things. All that he did was to reduce the length of educational time. So from 17 to 12. But still they maintain their religious values and cultures and everything they came to do. So it means that another thing that the educational reform did was to introduce religious and moral education in JHS. So it means that even though the government had come in to partner, by even introducing religious and moral education, means that we are affirming what you are doing.
Oh, so you see, it's becoming very interesting that the mission schools also were preserving their culture. Even though Nana says they are foreign. We shall come to that. I have a very nice question for Nana somewhere down the line. But these reforms are actually engineered by policy. So, Prof, if you look at policy reforms, what we understand and what we know is that sometimes it's just a few people, maybe the officials of the Ministry of Education, and a few others who might just sit down and come out with policies. Today, we want to understand who are the real stakeholders when it comes to policy formulation in Ghana for schools. So your question is, who are or should be the relevant stakeholders that should be consulted in policy formulation in Ghanaian schools? And what are their respective roles in the policy development process? Sorry, I'm a policyman, so.
Mr. Moderator, you have swerved me. The last part of your question has actually put me in a tight corner. I was coming to categorize the stakeholders in terms of internal and external stakeholders. But with the question that you have asked, I would have to try to categorize in terms of the respective roles that they play. I think the key stakeholders should be the students. You know, we'll call them the right holders. The rules are supposed to be applied on the students. But to what extent do we even hear and incorporate their experiences and then their views, their perspectives when it comes to the formulation of school rules? So first of all, I would think that we have to consider the student as a key stakeholder when it comes to things related to them. Then their parents come in as well. They are part of those that we'll call the right holders. Then we can talk about those who would eventually be implementing the rules. And these are the schools. So the leadership of the school, the teachers, and then the non-teaching staff within the school setting, they are all supposed to be part of the discussions. Then we can talk about the state and technical actors. In this regard, we are talking about those who are actually custodians of what happens, the Ministry of Education, the Ghana Education Service, and then maybe other relevant educational agencies. The MOE has a lot of agencies, so all those that matter. And then we can also talk about our cultural and moral custodians. This is where our chiefs, our community leaders, our religious organizations and leaders, and to add to what Madam said, the schools, the mission schools, we have to bring on board the managers of the educational units, the religious educational units. We have to bring all of them on board. We have to also look at what we call the watchdogs. These may be the civil society organizations, people in academia. We may also talk about even development partners. Then we can also talk about other analogous groups, including counselors. I want to be specific on this. Counselors, we can have psychologists, we can also have even health workers, and then other groups. So in terms of the roles that they will play, I would think that the students, because they are the people who would eventually have to abide by the rules, it would be good to hear their experiences and perspectives so that we can factor those into the rules. Then the implementers, the teachers, the staff who may eventually be implemented. Now, I want to also ask, and then let's say relate that to what I'm saying, that are the rules only meant, if they are school rules, are they only meant for the students? If they are not meant for the students, then we'll have to also look at even the labor unions, because we may have their codes of conduct which may apply to their staff. In that regard, I would say that if we are looking at the stakeholders, all of us, when it comes to education, we are one way or the other stakeholders. And these specific stakeholders that I have isolated are just for emphasis. But any other person who can contribute to the discussion on school rules should be considered as a relevant stakeholder. Thank you.
Yes, this is very insightful, especially the point about students being the right holders. And I do not know whether there is any policy, some of them have been mentioned, some policy reforms where students were involved. And that's quite interesting. We shall dive into that. But within the context of what you just said, there is something that is very interesting that the Ministry of Education has been promoting. It calls this mother tongue-based bilingual education. Mother tongue-based bilingual education. And we all know that Ghana is one of Africa's most linguistically diverse. We have about 80 different indigenous languages in Ghana, despite the fact that English is the official language. And this mother tongue bilingual education is supposed to allow learners to be taught in a familiar language, to improve literacy, comprehension, critical thinking, as mentioned by Nana, classroom participation, and learner confidence. Doctor, your question is, at what stages in the life of students should local languages and diverse cultural identities be prioritized without diminishing the need to enforce uniformity for discipline?
Thank you very much. One thing I wish to say is that a school does not promote uniformity or unity if by making all the students speak the same language, by making all the students practice the same religion or the same culture, or even behave alike, but a school promotes unity. When students from diverse backgrounds, diverse culture, different languages are made to feel equally belonging without fear of discrimination. When this happens, then the school is promoting unity. As the question that you have asked, at what stage? The stages will start from scratch when the child is a toddler to the university level. All these segments, the mother tongue is needed. GS has worked on this policy very extensively. But they have made it categorically clear that for the basic education, especially the early childhood period, priority should be given to the mother tongue. That is, a child can understand what is being taught better if the teacher uses the local language the child was taught at home before coming to school than using English, which is the official language of Ghana. But as the child progresses through the academic line, when he reaches somewhere in the upper primary, that is where that dual language, that's where the English language, which is the official language, can be introduced as a subject. So the child can be taught that so that he can be able to maneuver his ways throughout the country and even in a foreign land in case it happens. So the answer to this question is that we should not prioritize one area and leave the other, even though much priority should be given to the early childhood stage. But in the senior high school, the same thing can happen. I don't think a student should be punished for speaking his local language on campus, as it was happening during my school days. You'll be punished severely for speaking Twi. Why? Because the school says that it's vernacular and it's prohibited. Your own mother tongue is prohibited in your school. You can't speak it. I think it should be allowed. Certain culture which does not conflict with school rules and regulations should be allowed in the school. That is when we will say the school is practicing uniformity or the school is practicing unity. But if we decide to make the local language something very bad, or we demonize it to the extent that the student sees his local language as so bad and English language as better, then we are gradually killing our own culture. Some countries have developed using their own language. I can mention China as an example. They never use English or other language as maybe the official language. But that country is far better developed than many African countries that are using English as the official language. Thank you very much.
Oh. So I walk into people's homes and I see their kids. And the kid is looking at me as if I came from Asia. Is your mother in? Yes, mommy is in. Well, I don't. That's another point for discussion. But Nana, I want us to tackle this issue of corporal punishment that has been abolished. You see, and most of us have done some psychology. We know what we call positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement. For instance, in schools, we have speech and prize giving day, we give book prizes, we pat people at the back just to encourage them, motivate them. Of course, you have to discipline them to, sometimes we have suspension, writing of lines. I remember when I was here, I was made to write lines. And I had to submit it the following day. And because I had to write 1,000 lines, I decided to go and put a carbon paper under one of the sheets. Thinking I was smart. And I went and the teacher told me to go and write 2,000 lines. But see, these were forms of negative reinforcement to prompt students to go back to where a breach of common sense is a breach of school rules. However, and now that's your question, in the wake of the abolition of corporal punishment and the rise of vandalism, we just be heard that vandalism shouldn't come about if there is Ubuntu. But it is rising in schools. What 2 recommendations would you suggest to school authorities on the appropriate reinforcement that aligns with Ghanaian values of hard work?
One of the things that, Mr. Moderator, you need to look at, and sometimes we forget it, go and study the school crest. It's all about culture. Oh, we sometimes don't see it that way. But that crest, before then the circle that used to be there, that was removed. But when my good friend there was talking about indigenous languages, my mind went to something funny. I'm not Fanti, I'm a hunter. But my area has been colonized by the Fantis. Very well colonized. And I'm very happy about it because it is better than being colonized by my oppressor's language. So whether it's Hausa, whether we share the same meanings. Let me just throw you a question. You can't answer it here. In the morning, the Fantis will say, Aze Achi. In the night, they will say, Aze Asa. What is Aze? If you haven't learned your language and learned the philosophies that made your ancestors use the sound for certain things, Odumakma Obazi, Obazi. Quite recently had the fortune of putting something on Senior Butler's platform. They allowed me to put it there. And I asked the word. You say the word for prayer is Mpe or Wabompe. Then at the same time, to when you are cursing, Erpe Obi. So, where is it? And then, even the word Bo is to create, at the same time, it means to destroy. Now you see, I'm reflecting my existence from the point of view, the reality of my cultural background, not my miseducated background, when it makes you see your reality from the point of view of your oppressor, not your own ancestors. There are 2 different ways of entity. So, coming back to what you were saying, look, the whole MFANTSIPIM ideal, the whole idea of education is to be able to conform to rules by every means necessary, to use Malcolm X's phrase. You know, then we've lost it. If society cannot control an individual, then society is gone. But if the Ebusia is in self-destruction, who can help it? When you use vandalism, I was sad because I was a vandal in the university. But on the more serious side, these are the things we need to do. As a society, what do we want? It's our responsibility to make sure that the individual behaves the way the society wants the individual to behave. If you're going to let the individual control society, then you've lost it. The society has lost it. It's lost this ethos, to use Madame's word. So in short, that's the best that I can say for now.
Yes. For those of you who are expecting a supposedly mischievous answer, while drawing. and the whole thing is still centered on culture and the communal spirit. But, Reverend, I want to come back to you. on this partnership of the mission schools and the states. There's an ongoing debate that once mission schools receive public funding, then distinctive religious practices should be removed. You've mentioned that they are not supposed to replace them, they are supposed to maintain them. But there's that debate going on. Public support, however, does not automatically erase institutional identity, as you mentioned. Reverend, I want you to talk about two other topical issues in these debates. I've just mentioned one. Schools should remove their religious identity because they are being funded. But there are so many of these debates. So what are these debates? Just two of them. And how will that, bring about coexistence of institutional rights with students' personal freedom of conscience?
Thank you. So one of them is freedom of worship, where the mission schools instituted chapel or service time, that at a particular time every student should be found in a particular place to worship. So others are saying that, no, you are infringing on a student who is not, let's say, mission schools are Christian schools. So if a student is there and that student is not a Christian, and you are asking that student to appear or attend church service, you are infringing on that person's rights. But the 1992 Constitution gave the missionaries the right to establish school and still hold on to their values. So a student can be in a mission school and still participate in service. The most important thing is that the school should not force the students to get rid of whatever he or she believes. So I'm from another religion, and I come to school B. And that school B, every Sunday, they are Christians, they go to church. I can attend because it is part of the school rule. But they should make sure that they are not indoctrinating me or forcing me to let go what I believe. It's a freedom of worship. And the second thing sometimes has to do with dress code. You go to some religious institutions, they have a particular way of dressing. And a student finds himself or herself in such a school, and because of the student's belief, the student feels that I cannot wear this. And the school is also insisting that you should wear this. There is also a provision by the court and GES where the students and the institutions should come to a compromise. That is, because a student is not wearing this, that student will not be allowed to write WASI. No, it shouldn't be so. Or because a student is not attending service, that student cannot write exams. That one, you are going to the extreme. So that we have to come to that compromise where the student should also know that where you are, these are the things we do. But the church service should not be something that will hurt or destroy the student, or the dress code should not be something that will destroy the student. If this is not happening, then we should find a way of, coming to that compromising where you chose the school. So church service go, but nobody is forcing you to do confirmation. Nobody is forcing you to do baptism. That if you don't do baptism, you are not writing any exams. No.
Great points. Great points. So, Prof, policyman, stakeholder engagement consultation. Based on what has transpired, we know there are pertinent issues in stakeholder engagement. Things like poor identification, things like unclear communication, mismanaged expectations. However, I want you to give us 3 examples, okay, of issues that need attention in stakeholder engagement. So in stakeholder engagement, what 3 things would you, tell us that are pertinent?
Thank you once again. So I would start with what happened quite recently. I think on the 29th of July last month, there was a national conference on discipline in the Volta region. And they had a lot of stakeholders to convene for them to discuss issues related to discipline in our schools and how to curb those disciplines. But then the question is, who were those who were represented? And what is the power play over there? So the first issue that I would want to talk about is power, the issue of power. Definitely when the stakeholders meet, there will be some aspect of power imbalances. If the students are in the same room with their teachers, to what extent can they boldly represent their views? And that is where I think it is important that we empower our students to air their views. Respectfully, I think at the beginning the chairman alluded to some of these things. It is about how you say it, not only what you say. And if we bring the children up in those ways, then it would reflect exactly what it is that they want to share. So power. The second is the capacity of those who would be representing the various stakeholder groupings. How are they selected? And to what extent do they really represent the views of their constituencies? Take, for example, if we have students groupings, who is representing the students group 1? To what extent is that person reflecting the views of the collective? So these are issues that I think we have to look at. So before even we have these stakeholder engagements, I am thinking that the various constituencies should have means of galvanizing the ideas of all their constituents so that eventually the collective views would be shared. Then you mentioned the other one that I wanted to say, that is managing expectations. It is such that sometimes when we are involved in some of these stakeholder engagements, we assume that what we have shared should necessarily be what is presented. And if that is not presented, there is that tendency of people agitating and then thinking that their views are not actually, were not heard. So more or less it is like a kind of tokenism rather than they taking part actually in the engagement. So when we have such engagements, I am thinking that there should be some kind of openness, and then there should be some level of engagement and then feedback for people to see what the collective resolve is, the ideas that will be carried forward, the ideas that will be shelved, not because they are not important, but because there are other superior arguments that overshadow those. So those are the 3 key issues that I would think that we have to consider in any stakeholder engagement activity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Especially the power imbalances that you talked about. I recall vividly when we were drafting the inclusive education policy. And at the point in time, the representative for the Ministry of Education was insisting the policy should go in a certain direction. In fact, that particular round of meeting we had at Kufodua had to come to a halt. We all went and came back because we disagreed on the way it was going. And finally, when we came up with the policy, the then Minister of Education, who is now currently the Vice President, was very impressed with the fact that we didn't allow that power balance to. Yeah. Thank you very much for that insightful. And we are getting to the end of this round. I will come to the audience. So get your questions ready. Pius, I'm nominating you to get along with the MC to see the questions, and then we'll see. Just 4 questions, because we are running late, and Nana has to go back because I have a meeting with him tomorrow in Takoradi. Doctor, dress code has been mentioned. Dress code. Dress. What are 2 examples of dress restrictions in schools? Just 2 examples. Dress restrictions in schools. And how can schools enforce dress codes while balancing individual rights with legitimate school regulations?
Thank you. The 2, I think you have mentioned one already. That is, I mentioned it, the restriction on hijab or wearing of hijab by Muslim girls in senior high schools. And the second one is the hairstyle a student can use, or restriction on the hairstyle students can use in senior high schools. Let me say that before entering the National Peace Council, I was teaching at Buamposem Senior High School at Dunkanofin. And there was a school rule. The rule was that if you are going to write WASI, or that time, the WASI, or WAEC examination, you are not supposed to wear shoe, and you are not supposed to wear belt. The school sat down and saw that students were using that means to transport foreign materials into the examination room. So a law was created, or a rule was created to ban students from using that, doing that. And there was no noise about that. What I would say is that wearing of hijab, the school hairstyle, the style that the schools are restricting, the hairstyles. If the school think that this hijab has got something to do with the discipline, or maybe it affects the school rules to a certain extent, then it can be banned. But if there is no connection between wearing of hijab and maybe performance in school and discipline in school, then the school can modify it to the extent that maybe they can create hijab in the school colors for the Muslim girls to use. And that will bring uniformity in the school. But in case it affects the school negatively, then that one, it can be prevented. For the hairstyle, the court of Ghana has ruled on it. Okay, so there's a precedent from the Achimota school incident that happened some years ago. The school could not prove that the rasta on the student can affect the student's performance at school. The rasta on the student can perform this, that can affect discipline. And therefore, the court said the student can wear those hairstyles and go to school. So that's what the school must consider. The dress code the student is bringing, the hijab, the hairstyle, does it affect the general discipline of the school? If it is yes, it can be restricted. But if the answer is no, the school must allow it. Right now, because the court has ruled on it, it is binding on all schools in Ghana. I know that a school student can wear, if I can be in Rastafarian hairstyle and come to school, and no school can sack that person. So this is what I will say. What does wearing of the hijab or having a particular hairstyle affect discipline of the school? As I told you earlier, my school saw that students were using shoes to transport foreign material to the examination room, so they banned it. So if students use hijab to transport foreign materials into the examination room, that can be banned. And it is not being banned based on religion, but based on the school practices. Okay, that undermines the school rules and regulations. Thank you, sir.
When he was talking, I thought he was putting a question to the moderator. Thank you very much, Doc. That was quite... it's your turn, ladies and gentlemen. Any 4 questions? Unless you don't have questions. Are you satisfied with what they are saying, or there are questions?
All right. So,
Okay.
respectfully, moderator, we are taking 2 each. They respond, and we come back to the next 2, if it's all right.
I'm okay with that.
All right. So, Prof has a question, and then Reverend, and then we'll come back.
We also have students around. Yeah. So.
Okay. My question goes to Nana. I'm a realist, so I look at reality. Realist. I'm looking at reality of the system. You mentioned that engagement in Ghana is marriage, but our women don't want it. They want the wedding. You go to certain houses, like moderator said, they don't even speak the local language. Parents who grew up in the village no longer speak the local language. You listen to a radio interview, and 60% of what they will say is in English, mixture of local language and English. They just can't speak the local language. If you do a buffet here right now and put Bordier Kontomri, none of the students here will go for it. They'll go for the fried rice. So you see, we are gone. So my question is, how do we even stop it or go back to our roots? Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think my question would also go to Nana as well, respectfully. From the first presentation, I think my understanding is that the child is coming into an institution which has a culture, that ebusua, that the child is coming in, and that ebusua is supposed to help train that child. And so the child's right is situated in the ebusua. But from the other presentations, we also get to know that there's ebusua kese, which is the nation. A situation where the nation's new developments and rules seems to suppress what the ebusua ketewa system and rules are. Where do we stand? Do we forgo what that ebusua, in this case, MFANTSIPIM culture, and hold on to the national one? Or where do we stand? That's my concern. Thank you.
Actually, I wish I could remember your thing before. You asked, I'm sorry, what was the first question you asked? So.
I just gave examples, and I said, where are we going?
Oh, okay.
Yes,
okay.
I said, I'm a realist.
We are going to Chinese reality. So I'm glad you're thinking that way, because that is part of our fundamental problem. And then even with our concepts, as I sit here, I'm speaking English, but I also know that none of us here has defined democracy. Somebody sits somewhere and defines democracy for you. And when I started, I said, whoever defines your world controls your world. So if somebody outside defines your world, and so then you have a problem. Now we're very fortunate that Ghana has been picked up, or Ghana has stood out that it wants something to do with reparations. Am I right? Before you can understand, you need to repair your mind. You need to restore your sanity to make reparations. So these things, they're all going together. We know that our minds have been damaged. Look, let me go to this man's. You know, have you heard of Jacobus Capitaine? Capitaine came to Elmina. He's supposed to be from this side of the universe. He came to Elmina, tried as much as he could from Holland. He couldn't convert anybody. Then he says, if you want to convert anybody from this area, you have to go and put him on an island and indoctrinate him. That's why I use that word, indoctrination. Then comes Birch Freeman. And what did Freeman say? He says, sir, boarding schools are gifts to us. That is where we can get them and indoctrinate them. Two people are two different periods. But you need to interrogate it. And that goes to my good friend wearing Batakari like me. You know, in every situation, there must be interrogation. To what extent are you part and parcel of the larger thing. When I use the word about the United Nations, for example, do you think that there's a UN? Today, certain people think that they are more than the UN and they do what they think. Certain nations. So that's why I asked, were you part of the rules? I remember being at Ghana at 50 conference, and we're talking about sustainable goals and so on. And one man stood up. It was a roommate of Professor Kwame Jeche, one of our old boys at MIT, but he's Nigerian. And he says, who devised those goals for you? Were you part of it? And so on. So in everything that you say it's international, to what extent is it? Who respects your ant's view? Or we should just follow the elephant. The ant can go into the ear of the elephant and kill it. So Anansi tells you to interrogate everything that comes your way. Kweku, it thinks so. So when I said 4, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, the 4th day. The 4th day is the day of Awuku, the day of wisdom. So 4. That is why the Apakan is carried by 4 heads. Not the Palanquin, the Apakan. And so on and so forth. And that goes into the indigenous language speaking, to understand it from your own perspective, your own worldview. You don't go and borrow somebody's worldview just like that. If science were being taught in Fanti or in Hausa, I wonder how many scientists we would have had in this country. But it's only the senior butlers who speak very good English. Anyway, I hope I've made some sense in what you're saying. Thank you.
Yeah, so before the next 2 questions, that reminds me of Bob Marley. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but us can free our mind.
Papa.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. In fact, I am being asked to speak in Fanti, but I'll resist, or I should try. Thank you. So, I want to give a preamble to what I want to say. Then I'll throw it to moderator to see who best can answer my question. So, I recall when we were living in MFANTSIPIM not too long ago. That was when Mr. B.K. Dontry was exiting and Mr. Ishen took over. Aside from what we learned as a breach of common sense, it's a breach of school rules, what Mr. Ishen taught us was that we should be careful of the actions that we take, for they would affect us or those following us now or in the future. Based on that, I proceed. And I proceed by asking, what is the difference between culture and rights or human rights? They are all about regulation. They are all about standards and identity. So I want to ask, what changed? What changed that maybe in the early 60s, early 30s, school rules was largely informed or administered through the eyes of culture? Now it's about rights or human rights. What has really changed? Was it that culture was having a very bad influence on the outcomes of administering school rules, or what is it? And second question is that, can't culture and human rights go hand in hand, be integrated, as the topic says, in forming and administering school rules to the best of all? Thank you.
And the last question. No,
Yes, can we have students? Sir, I'll come to you, but it will be interesting to have some of the students. But yeah, Agasco, I've seen a hand. Oh, sorry, Adisco, right? All right, we come here and then here.
We are running behind time, so let's be snappy.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. Dear moderator, would you permit me to ask Dr. Charles Amo a question?
Please, can you speak louder?
Okay, sir. How can diverse religious affiliation of students in school be handled to curb the various challenges he mentioned? So some of these challenges he made mention were misinterpretation of concepts of religious freedom, as well as diversity in schools, which could compromise rights. How can diverse religious affiliations of students in school be handled to curb these challenges? Thank you very much.
Please, I hope the question was clear for all of us. Prefects, please wait. Let's take at this school.
Good evening. Please, my question is directed to the moderator. Please, earlier on, I heard a question about student dress code. It involved wearing the appropriate attire, hairstyle, and all other things. Please, my question is, in my school at the Sador College, they have been taking some action called debunking, where people with overgrown hair get their hairs cut against their will. Please, what's your take on that? Thank you.
We take this one, and then I get a panel of moderators who signed up the last two questions. So,
well, I think the audience should not be overcarried because I wanted 4 questions, but we're now going to 6. So let's take another question, then we'll get them to answer.
All right, thank you. And please, I would like to find out, because myself, I'm an educator, I've been in the classroom for quite a short while. And I've met couple students who speak a single Ghanaian local language. So now my question is that, how do we properly integrate our local languages into our entity, as Nana rightly put it? And the next question is that, we being able to count couple students who cannot speak a single Ghanaian language, have we failed? And if we have failed, what can we do to make things right and better? Thank you.
And we'll take the last one. Yeah. Perfect.
Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Moderator. So my question is that since I've noticed that the situation is that right now most of the secondary schools, we've noticed that the type of punishment or corporal punishment is not effective anymore. So I just wanted to ask, is counseling or counseling a student much more effective than instigating corporal punishment on the individual? Because here the case where people feel like since there is no punishment, there's no like serious punishment, they are only going to face counseling. They feel like the discipline of the school has reduced. So they will feel like having counseling is not going to do anything about it. So I just want to know, is counseling much more effective than corporal punishments? Thank you.
Thank you very much for those questions.
All right.
I think we shall skip the moderator's question because you've asked too many questions. No, Mike, I'll answer your question. But first, I want to go to panelists. And any of you respectfully can take, you want to take that on religious diversity, okay?
Yes. I think there was a question on culture and human rights. What I would say is that culture can be outmoded. Culture can be outmoded. And therefore, culture must fit into human rights. For instance, female genital mutilation is a cultural practice of some group of people in Ghana, but it's against human rights. And therefore, human rights is superior. So to mix the two, human rights must take precedent over certain cultures, especially those that are outmoded. They must be taken away by human rights. That's what I will answer for that combination. It can be blended all right, but human rights must take precedent over culture. And number 2, concerning the religious diversity, as he asked, in fact, all churches, in fact, all religious groups in Ghana met and drafted the Memorandum of Understanding on Religious Tolerance in Schools in Ghana. And this memorandum of understanding has outlined everything that is necessary to guide any school in how to implement religious diversity. And it is a very, very good thing I think everybody must read. I like what they say about fasting because it was a subject of controversy in some schools very recently. The MOU says clearly, if you want to fast, 4 principles must be followed. 1, secure permission from the school. Your parents must do that for you. You can't fast on your own. I'm not talking about skipping one meal, no. I'm talking about structured fasting like Lent or Ramadan. Before you embark upon it, your parents must seek permission for you at school. Number 2, when the permission is granted, then counselor must come in, as the student was asking. There's a counselor in almost all schools in Ghana. The counselor must take you through the implications of the journey you are about to take, the fasting. And if you think you have the strength to continue, then the 3rd principle comes in, that you cannot exempt yourself from any school program. I'm fasting, I won't go to class, no. I'm fasting, I won't go to do this, no. You must participate in all school programs, including even though you are fasting. And last one is, in case you are fasting and any bad thing happened to you, it is for you and your parents to resolve it, not the school. So the memorandum has clearly stated everything that must be known in terms of religious diversity in schools. And I wish we all get a copy and read it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
I just want to make a comment about what Dr. Amos said. Culture is different from customs. Customs change. And customs are within. It's not that the culture gets outmoded. It is customs that become outmoded or they change. And tradition, I'm a traditional Englishman. I'm a traditional Fante. It's the behavior, the qualities, the values that are embedded in the traditions. And I said it at first, that powers you. So if your value is truth, wherever you are, it powers you through all the changes, how do you say, in the scenes of life, eh? Yeah. See, I'm a good Methodist. So that is it.
Okay, thank you. I don't know whether anybody wants to add something, Reverend or Prof. Yes.
Well, the issue about culture and rights, I'd want to add responsibility as well. Because we may have, as Nana said, we may have our microculture, we may have a macroculture. Take, for example, you have a culture at home. You are coming to the school. The school has its own culture as well. So culture is contextual. And in that regard, I am thinking that in all of this, the engagement is important. It is when we engage, we come to appreciate maybe the reasoning behind some of these rules. And I'm also thinking that, the rules are there, just as the scripture says, the law was made for man, not man for the law. So in that regard, I am thinking that if the rule is such that it will eventually harm the child, then we have to consider it. Take, for example, there is an Kan adage that you don't throw away the child with the dirty water. Okay? If you are going to punish and eventually lose the child, then what have you done? So it is more about moderation, is about giving it critical thought. I use my own daughter as an example where I nearly killed her because I was angry, and the way I went to her, she was running away and she bumped her head. If I had taken my time at that particular time, probably I wouldn't have done that. So I'm thinking that in our anger, sometimes that is what happens. In our anger, we met out punishment that do not really commensurate the kind of offense that has been committed. So we have to be fair in terms of all these things. Thank you.
I think most of the questions have been answered. The counseling side has just been brought upon. I don't know whether, Reverend, you want to add something. Okay.
Concerning the language,
right.
I think we should start from our own we are talking about culture. Start from your own home. Start from your own background. And I think GES has also made it such a way that in every locality or whatever, they are learning, they have a local language that they learn. So if you are in Accra, you are learning Ga. If you are in Cape Coast, you are learning Fanti as part of the curriculum that the JHS, so BEC, wherever you are in Accra, you are writing Ga. You are in Cape Coast, you are writing Fanti. I think it's part of the things that they are trying to help us go to our own life, but it comes from the home. Do you understand? The GES or the school cannot, change that. We must change it from our various homes. Start speaking your local dialect with your child. And let it be part of the family. You are an Ewe, try and speak it. As for English, when the person goes to school, they will learn, but try and do it. So the culture, we should start it. The government may do some, but may not be able to do all. Let's start from our various homes. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah. So that brings us to the end of the, but I was put, you said you were talking about, I decided, let me try and answer it. And I also happen to have taught at Adesanya College for 6 years. So I understand what he's saying. Sometimes some actions are taken based purely on hygiene. In a typical boys' school, where some of us don't take our daily bath. Is that not true? There are underlying or antecedents and other issues that accompany such acts. And we don't want to breed lies in schools. When I'm talking about lies, the singular is louse. I think you know what I mean. Iju. You see, there's a likelihood that if you keep your hair long in such circumstances, where we have a large body of people who are crowded together, there is this likelihood of infecting other people. But if you keep your hair short, the likelihood that lice will be there will be minimized. Those are some of the reasons. The other one is because if you allow the freedom, like in a girls' school, you find that people will plait their hair in a certain way. Some want to perm their hair, and it creates all sorts of competition. And I will tell you something that I observed when I was at the University of Ghana, Legon. You go to the female halls, and woe betide you if you are a lady and you are not using Victoria's Secret. That was the brand. So you can imagine somebody from a poor home coming to Legon, mixing up and trying to cope, to catch up with that kind of trend. In the event, or in fact, one of the outcomes was that some of the girls started preferring. They started stealing because they wanted to be abreast with the other. So these are things that have to be taken, done with caution. Yeah. So I don't know whether I've answered your question, but I used to teach in the US. And can you imagine my horror? I had a 6 a.m. lecture. So I enter my lecture room, and these are because of they believe in so many rights. The female students enter lecture halls with pajamas. Can you imagine? You see, these are the things that we are talking about. If you don't have some kind of control, that's where the problem is. Thank you. I think I won't ask my question. We wanted to end by 8 o'clock, but it's past 8 o'clock. I will just ask Nana 2 minutes. Any two strategies, innovative strategies, that traditional leaders can bring on board to harmonize cultural values with the rights, so-called rights in schools. I don't know. Yeah, any two strategies. Yeah.
I wasn't expecting this question. But if you listen to the gist of the trend that I've set on, I personally think that we don't have diverse cultures. We have a root culture. The rest are just branches of flowers coming from that root culture. And if we go back to the roots, things would be very easy in terms of our thinking. And that's something that we need to look at. So if you take the Constitution, for example, I always laugh at the Constitution. It's supposed to be our spirit. But then you get those who know it better than me. So this is a cross between French and American Constitution. I'm an African. I don't want to be French. Neither do I want to be American. I don't even want to be a hybrid of both. But that is your Constitution. Now, the challenge for some of us is that why don't we write a Constitution from our own cultural basis? And perhaps some of the problems we are having may not be there. Because I believe in responsibilities. Ioyasu, Asuza, any place you are put in our society, it's to do with trust and responsibilities. Even money that you make, you are entrusted with wealth to help uplift your community. See, but now that we've gone into this individualistic, if you go to some places, the village brings money together to educate an individual, to help. But today, if I have to struggle and do this, then you think that the community matters. So it's all a matter of the way we think and how we want to proceed. That's all.
Fantastic, fantastic, yeah. Thank you very much, Nana. And that brings to mind a question one American student asked me. Why is it that the UK has no constitution? Do you know that the UK has no constitution? I say, they don't have a written, thank you, Nana, written constitution. I mean, they move by conventions, norms. And that is, I think, the point that Nana is trying to. So, Reverend, concluding remarks on, so I'm a parent, and I know I'm sending my child to a school. That school has school rules. What should parents do? What advice should parents give to your wards on the possibility of waiving some of their rights, the children's rights?
Okay. Thank you. So
by going to a school that, let's say it's a mission school or it's an Islamic school. Okay. Yes.
So the MOU that Doc talked about, one of the framework is that as a parent, you should have informed information that will guide you to choose a school for your child. Because we have already established that the mission schools came in with their own agenda. And they have their values, they have their culture, they have their discipline. So there are certain schools that if you choose for your child, you must know what goes on there and reason with your child and know that when you go to this school, these things are must. So the bottom line is that know the school you are sending your child, know about their culture, know about what they believe in, what they like, what they don't like. discuss with your child. So when you, after knowing them, if you decide to choose the school for your child, it means you have to go by the rules there, and so that peace will prevail. Instead of knowing what they do there, that you intentionally send the child there, that you come and raise certain issues, it's a problem.
It's a problem. That's a problem. And so, policyman, how can policies promote accountability? I mean, joint stakeholder engagement. Yeah.
I am thinking that first the policies must be, or the engagement must be inclusive.
Okay.
Inclusive within an atmosphere of mutual trust and respect. And then secondly, there should be a high level of transparency. And then the engagement must also be evidence-informed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. And Doc, any 2 top measures you can recommend? You mentioned inclusive schools. Any 2 top measures you can recommend that will respect the identity of students?
Okay.
Yeah.
One is the school must carefully allocate dormitories to students based on their religious identity and culture. That is, the school can decide to mix them and mix them very well, so that Christians, Muslims can mix together in one dormitory, so that they learn from each other. So they shouldn't make it such a way that all Christians are in one room, all Muslims are in one room. That can be a very good thing that will bring the unity in diversity. Yes, and the second one is schools too must allow the language of the students to be displayed, especially during ceremonial programs, like maybe school speech and prize giving days. Maybe cultures in the school can be allowed to display what they can do in the school for people to see. Maybe those who are from Ghana can display their culture. Those who are from Akan areas can also display their culture. And this will make this inclusivity so loud in all schools. Thank you.
And on that note, on behalf of the audience, I want to say a big thank you to the panelists. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give it to them. Let's give it to them. Let's give it to them. And so,
right. I guess a bigger applause is in order for all of them. Thank you so much, Mr. Moderator, and the rest of you. Respectfully, I guess you can resume your seat at this point. And if you are still watching us live on YouTube, this is the third series of the MFANTSIPIM at 150 Sesquicentennial panel discussion, which is under the theme Integrating School Rules, Culture, and Human Rights in Ghanaian Schools. It was powered by MOBA Central under the auspices of MFANTSIPIM at 150 Planning Committee. Thank you. May we resume our seats? May we resume our seats? We are grateful, panel members and moderator. At this moment, we are drawing very close to the whole event to bring it to an end, but we cannot do that without taking a word, just a brief word, from the rep of the Regional Director of Education in the person of Ms. Perpetua Ejeijan.
Mr. Chairman, distinguished panelists, MOBA Central, headmasters around, teachers, students, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. In fact, I'm bringing you greetings from our regional directorate, which is being headed by Dr. Mrs. Juliet Otamidufie, who would have loved to be here, but for some reasons couldn't come, asked me to come. Last week I was at your program, and just when I finished with the remarks and I was seated, as I sat, she sent me a recording of what I just came to do on the stage. It's an indication that even though she's not here, she's following us live. So I greet her too. Let me first commend MODA Central and the 150th Planning Committee for this timely and thought-provoking panel discussion. In fact, the topic, integrating school rules, culture, and human rights in Ghanaian schools, speaks directly to the heart of education today. From what we have heard from Nana, from Reverend, from Prof, and then from Doctor, we can all agree that discipline and rights are not opposites. They are not opposites. Our Ghanaian culture values respect and responsibility and our community. At the same time, our constitution and the international conventions demand that we protect the dignity and the rights of every child, every learner in our schools. The Central Regional Directorates fully support this balance. We are working with schools to ensure that discipline is restorative and not destructive. So I loved it when some of our students were asking about debunking and the sort of response our panelists gave. In fact, discipline is supposed to be restorative. That our cultural practices also build character and human rights, and that character and human rights building is not an afterthought, but the foundation of how we treat our learners. This convention is even more important as we work and mark our 150 years of MFANTSIPIM. For 150 years, this school has produced leaders of integrity, and we can all see this evening. Today's dialogue ensures that the next 150 years produce leaders who are not only brilliant, but are also just, who are respectful and socially responsible. To our students here, we are proud of you. So please be proud of our culture. Know your rights and obey school rules. Know that these school rules and rules build you. In fact, they are not to break you. They are to build you. To our school leaders here, let us go back and review our code of conduct and to ensure they are fair, they are clear, and they align with both our culture and law. The directorate, which is being led by our regional director, pledges its support to all schools undertaking this important work. Once again, congratulations, MFANTSIPIM at 50. May God bless you. Thank you.
And you would agree with me that this is a very brief remarks. Please, another round of applause for her. She represented the Regional Director of Education, and she's just done that. While it will also be very, very befitting if we had a rep of the MOBA Ebusiapenyin also speak to us. And so at this moment, please, let's welcome Mr. David Indom to address us. Message from Ebusiapenyin himself.
Good evening. Distinguished Chairman Nana Sam Brew Butler, distinguished panelists, the rep of the Regional Director of Education, the Traditional Council, the Assistant Headmasters, the MCE, and all other protocols that have already been observed. I duly stand on them. fellow old boys, members of the MFANTSIPIM family, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great privilege to join you at this important intellectual engagement as we celebrate 150 years of MFANTSIPIM School. Our sesquicentennial theme, a legal of excellence, leadership, and service to inspire the future, reminds us that an anniversary is not merely an opportunity to celebrate how far we have come. It is also a responsibility to ask what we must do to ensure that the values that brought us this far remain relevant to generations yet unborn. Tonight's discussion on integrating school rules, culture, and human rights in Ghanaian schools is therefore particularly appropriate. For 150 years, MFANTSIPIM has understood that education is about much more than academic achievement. It is about forming character, developing disciplined minds, nurturing leadership, and preparing young people to serve society. The school's history demonstrates that excellence is sustained when knowledge is accompanied by integrity, responsibility, and respect for others. At the same time, the world in which our young people are being educated is changing rapidly. We must therefore continually examine how discipline, institutional culture, and the rights and dignity of students can coexist. Discipline must not lose its purpose. Culture must not become an excuse for practices that undermine dignity. And human rights must not be understood as freedom from responsibility. The challenge before educators, parents, policymakers, students, and alumni is to find that delicate balance. Schools that are orderly without being oppressive, culturally grounded without being exclusionary, and rights conscious without abandoning their responsibility to develop disciplined and responsible citizens. This is precisely the broader purpose identified for this lecture series, to contribute to the national conversation on education, leadership, citizenship, and development. As old boys, we have a particular responsibility. We are beneficiaries of the MFANTSIPIM tradition, and we must ensure that the legacy we inherited is not merely preserved as history, but translated into action. Our contribution must include supporting the school, mentoring the next generation, strengthening educational infrastructure, encouraging innovation, and above all, modeling the values we expect our young people to embrace. MFANTSIPIM has survived and flourished for 150 years beyond successive generations. So let me take that again. MFANTSIPIM has survived and flourished for 150 years because successive generations understood that the institution belonged not only to their time, but also to the future. Its enduring motto, Dream Shwekan, that is think and look ahead, captures this obligation perfectly. As we celebrate MFANTSIPIM at 150, let us therefore celebrate the past with gratitude, confront the present with courage, and approach the future with vision. May this discussion deepen our understanding, strengthen our commitment to education, and help shape schools where excellence, discipline, culture, human dignity, and service reinforce one another. And may MFANTSIPIM continue for another 150 years and beyond to inspire generations of men and women who will lead with character, serve with humility, and contribute meaningfully to Ghana and the world. Jane Shekan, thank you, and may God bless MFANTSIPIM School and MOBA.
Thank you very much, Senior Indom. At this moment, it is all done and dusted. But it's also befitting that we take a closing remark of the chairman. Mr. Samuel Nana Brew Butler is our chairman for this august occasion. Please, a bigger applause for our chairman as he closes us.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I think you can do a third one for me. And applauding, not for me, on my behalf, for the moderator, the panelists, and yourselves. It's been an exciting and interesting evening. I learned something. I don't know about you. But I need to correct something that Nana has been saying, or had been saying all along. And he knew I was going to fire back. So he left here before I could do so. Nana and I walked the hills of Kabotwe on the 18th of September, 1964. So I'm not his senior. Besides, he's about a year older than me. So he's my brother Payne. But I also take a mickey out of him. When I was having my wedding in UK, he was my butler. He served my drinks for me. So I tell him that let everybody respect him, let them say whatever they do and acknowledge him. But for me, he was my butler. That's on a lighter note. Having listened to the panelists, I think I'm drawing some conclusion. I said I was going to be neutral, but after listening to them, I'm not going to digest it, but I am drawing some conclusions. And take a position. Discipline, education, culture, and human rights are not enemies. They are not enemies. As Nana said, culture propelled us as Ghanaians to independence. And we are born into Ebusia as a bedrock. Our school or schools require authority. Teachers must teach. Students must follow legitimate rules, and discipline is essential to a serious learning environment. Our history teaches us that the value of identity, culture, independent thought, and leadership. Our history teaches us that. So, I return to our fundamental rule. A breach of common sense is a breach of school rules. Students must exercise common sense in respecting legitimate rules. The institutions must exercise common sense in creating and enforcing them. That is not weakness, it is leadership. We made reference to language, and I must confess something. In 1960, at the age of 8 or 7, I was sent to the first international, those days they called it international school, called Penworth Preparatory School in Accra. All that they taught us was English. And when I got to MFANTSIPIM, I could not write Fanti. I realized that there was a Fanti class, so I voluntarily joined. So from 1 to 3, I learned Fanti and write here. So today, I make sure my children speak Fanti. And when we go out of this country, many want to come concern, so that the white people can't hear us. Because they do that. And they have a way of doing it. You can't even pick up one word. It's important. As we look to the next 150 years, let us preserve discipline, but not fear. Authority, but not arbitrariness. Culture, but not rigidity. Rights, but not license. Independent thought, but not disrespect. Ultimately, the purpose of education is not simply to produce obedient students. It is to produce people of character, as was said here, disciplined minds, confident citizens, and responsible leaders. So in trying to draw the curtain, in concluding, perhaps we can leave here today with one enduring principle: culture and foundation. And as a Christian institution, we were started by the missionaries, yes. But when they threatened to leave, it was the Benson Sabbaths, my great-granduncle Kay, and the rest who came to the rescue in 1903, contributed to the Fanti Educational Trust Fund, and brought in that Ghanaian element, the culture that today we profess. And it's even biblical, to lay the right foundation for us. And if you look at Matthew 7, 24 to 27, our Lord Jesus said, "Everyone then who hears these words of mine and does them will be like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain fell and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house, but it did not fall because it had been founded on the rock." MFANTSIPIM has been founded on the rock. Everyone who hears these words of mine and does not do them will be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. The rain fell and the floods came and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell, and great was that fall of it. Fortunately for us, as it's here nanum wobutaipa no abayen so butaipa. It's lived and survived for 150 years, and it will continue. And again, it's interesting. If you look at the school hymn, it says this: "Oh, may thy soldiers," we soldiers, "faithful, true, and bold, fight as the saints," we saints, "who nobly fought of old, and win with them the victor's crown of gold." We will live, and live even stronger after 150 years. God bless you. Thank you.
We really appreciate your thought-provoking remarks. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we draw curtains on this all-important exercise here this evening. But just before we finish everything, permit me to do some few acknowledgements. First and foremost, we appreciate the presence of our very chairman, Nana Sambru Butler. Thank you so much. We also Nana Kwabnan Katia, the Fifth, Paramount Chief of Isikado Traditional Area. We equally acknowledge Dr. Kenneth Shelton Akins, MOBA Central President, and also our moderator for tonight. We acknowledge the rep of MOBA Ebusiapenyin, Mr. David Indom. We acknowledge our panel, Professor Alfred Ampa Mensa, Dr. Charles Ohene Amo, Reverend Esther Dennis, and of course, Nana Kobran Katia, the Faith. Also in our midst is our MC, Honorable George Justice Athase. Thank you so much for your presence. We appreciate you so much. People were whispering to me, MC. Please, he says that he's had enough. He doesn't want to say anything today. So, sir, thank you. A round of applause for him. We duly acknowledge the presence of all MOBA present. Big salute to you all. Also to the Wesley Girls Old Students Association, we acknowledge you. Wegehe, thank you so much. We acknowledge the panel discussion planning committee chaired by Professor John Abraham. You and your team, your man's job. We acknowledge you. Please, a round of applause for them. They made it happen. Also, the rep of Ghana Education Service Regional Director, Madam Perpetua. Thank you so much, Madam. The rep of Metro Education Director, Mr. Samuel Prince Tete. We acknowledge you. We also acknowledge school management and all staff, from the assistant heads present, Reverend, and all of you. We acknowledge you. All the staff that are doing some errands around to ensure that this event is successful, we duly acknowledge. We also acknowledge our former headmaster, Mr. Kwame Eja, who is also a patron of MOBA Central. Sir, thank you for your time with us this evening. And then also our former assistant head in charge of administration, now the substantive head of Ednaman Senior High, Mr. John Arthur. Sir, thank you for your presence. That said, we acknowledge the presence of Ednaman. Ednaman, 1 year did one headmaster. Ednaman, aren't you here? 1 year did And also St. Augustine's College, our brothers, we salute your presence. You and your teaching staff that accompanied you here. Also at the Sada College, Wesley Girls High School, Ogwa Secondary Technical School, University Practice SHS, and of course, Ghana National College. We acknowledge all of you. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me also acknowledge our sponsors. KGL Group, Multimedia Group Limited, and of course, Margins Group. And you yourself, we acknowledge you. Yes, I think I missed out. Regimental band, please forgive me. We acknowledge you, the school choir, prefects, and all of you. Let me also say that the head boy's parents, both of them, are here to support. So, Prof. and Mrs. Asari, we acknowledge your presence. Yeah, head boy, we salute you. Take your shine. Okay, so that said, there are some few books on sale which were brought from Accra to our students. The titles, one is MFANTSIPIM and the Making of Ghana. MFANTSIPIM and the Making of Ghana. And the other is A Headmaster Remembers, in both hard and soft copies. So you go out there's a secretariat, you can grab a copy for yourself. On this note, distinguished people, I think Dr. Ejekum Daze is here to say thank you to all of us. So Dr. Daze, please help us with a vote of thanks. After which, we all rise, and then we take the school hymn, and then we close finally with the closing prayer by Reverend Samuel Kofi Techi, the school chaplain.
Education is a social process. Education is growth. Education is not preparation for life, but is life itself. By John Dewey. Distinguished chairman, respected panelists, invited guests, heads of schools, teachers, all protocol duly observed. Students, ladies and gentlemen, this powerful statement reminds us that education is not merely about academic knowledge or preparing learners for examination. It is about shaping individuals who can live responsibly, respect others, appreciate their culture, and enjoy their fundamental human rights. It is therefore with great pleasure and sincere gratitude that I stand before you to deliver this vote of thanks at the end of this insightful panel discussion on integrating school rules, culture, and human rights in Ghanaian schools. On behalf of the MOBA Central and the entire fraternity of MFANTSIPIM, I extend our sincere thanks to the Almighty God for making today's event a grand success. A warm and graceful evening to our Honorable Chairman, Mr. Samuel Nanabriu Butler, the MCE, Mr. George Justice Atta, the Headmaster, Very Reverend Ebenezer K. Edu, Regional Director, GS, Dr. Juliet Otamidufe in absentia. It is my privilege to propose a vote of thanks and acknowledge your presence and the contribution of those who worked really hard to make this event possible. On behalf of my school, I extend a hearty vote of thanks to our chairman, who spared time from his busy schedule to grace this event. Today, we had the opportunity to hear your thoughts, and this will surely encourage us in all our future endeavors. Your thoughts have enlightened our minds and have shown us a new path. I also want to thank the panelists, Nana Kobna and Katia the Fifth, MOBA 69, of his active participation in this event. You truly made this enlightening. You truly made this day enlightening for us. Your deep and intellectual way of imparting traditional knowledge has added the glory of this event. Today, we have got a lot of information which will truly help us in our life. Today, I know all education is indoctrination, and the best education is the indoctrination that makes you aware of indoctrination. Thank you for that. We have no words to offer gratitude for your valuable presence here. You gave deep insight into the topics and revealed some interesting facts. I must mention our deeper sense of appreciation to Reverend Esther H.B. Dennis for her detailed explanation of the foundation of ethos of mission schools. I will also express our sincere thanks to Professor Alfred Ampamensa for an excellent coverage on stakeholder engagement and accountability in policy reforms. We are all inspired by your great words. I also want to express profound gratitude to Dr. Charles Ohene Amo for your worthy opinion on the right to identify religion, language, dress, and belonging. We appreciate our panelists for their effort for making the event informative for all of us. An event like this cannot happen overnight. The wheels started rolling weeks ago. It requires planning and a bird's eye for detail. We have been fortunate enough to be backed by a panel discussion committee of very proactive and dedicated members. I am short of words for their involvement and their willingness to take on the completion of this task beyond their comfort zones. A special mention to our respected president for MOBA Central, Dr. Kenneth Shelkin Akins, who was also our moderator for being the catalyst that stimulated us to do our best. With a deep sincere of appreciation, we thank our loving teachers and heads of our sister schools for their presence. Finally, I would like to thank our students. That is, the event has been joyful with your presence. I would like to also thank all the respective representatives who have blessed us with their presence. I am thankful to all the staff for their efforts in getting the assembly hall ready for this event. Last but not the least, a big thank you to each one of you who made the event memorable. We thank you for being with us. It has remained a pronounced pleasure. And we hope to see you again on our 150th Speech and Prize Giving Day. Have a great evening. Thank you, Madam Wanasi.
Thank you for a very memorable vote of thanks. All right, we shall take the school hymn, but before that, let me announce for us as MOBA, we have various socials, and there is an advertisement for nomination. So some awards, as part of the Sesquicentennial anniversary would happen. So we are seeking nominations for various categories. Please visit these socials and abreast yourself of the various categories and how you can do your nominations. The deadline is 31st August 2026. So please do that quickly. Nominations are still open. I left out somebody. My attention has been drawn. Dr. Beth Ofe-Awuku, we appreciate your presence so much. Thank you. Please pardon me. And somebody also said I didn't mention my school. Kwaboche, we are here some. Shall we respectfully rise at this moment and take the school hymn? We take 1, 4, and 8. After that, we would have Reverend Techi close us in prayer and benediction. My name is Chris Agri. I was your MC for this. Good night.
Let's have a word of prayer. We bless your name, O Lord. We began with you. You have granted us the strength to sit in, the courage and knowledge, O God, for the presentations. You have brought us to this expected end. We commit ourselves unto you. You journeyed with us here. We pray that you journey with us back home safely until we meet again in the next occasion. We are grateful to you. And so unto the God's gracious hand I commit you. May the Lord keep you and be gracious unto you. May he lift up his countenance and grant you his absolute peace today and forevermore. Amen. Thank you very much.
May we please accord our dignitaries the honor of leaving us before we leave. But the website for the award is award.mfantsipim150.org. award.mfantsipim150.org. And our technical team, Charlie, you guys have done great. Thank you. Thank you so much. We forgot you. It's fine. Myself, I was forgotten. It's fine.